Good afternoon, all. This is the summary for lecture 2. We stopped at talking about Turing test during the previous lecture. Just a recap of the things that we did was we tried to understand what do you mean by artificial intelligence. We related it to four different quadrants, the definition of artificial intelligence. We related it to the faculty of thinking like humans, acting like humans, thinking rationally, or acting rationally. So these were the four faculties. Out of this, acting humanly was a very important faculty of artificial intelligence. Now, there were many people who advocated this particular faculty of artificial intelligence in the first place. One of the researchers called as Alan Turing actually put forth during 1950 paper of computing machinery and intelligence a test called as Turing test. We discussed in detail what this test is and how far this test is capable of identifying whether a system that we have built is an artificially intelligent system or not. We then discuss about if this test is to be realized in its full sense, then we have to understand the fact that the AI system which we want to interrogate to be artificially intelligent or otherwise should have certain capabilities that include it should be able to do natural language processing, knowledge representation, automated reasoning, and machine learning. If the test has to be conducted on a system that can act like a human being, then it should also have additional capabilities of physically manipulating objects using robotic capabilities, and also should have computer vision in order to perceive the objects that it wants to manipulate. So these two attributes, if I attach to Turing test, the test that I get is called as total Turing test. This total Turing test is a test of a appliance, hardware software combination system that will be called as AI if it has all these five attributes and it passes the total Turing test. Total Turing test is nothing but an extension of the Turing test. We also looked at briefly what do you mean by cognitive computing, and we also got an idea about how the current AI systems are more so dealing with cognitive abilities or dealing with mimicking the cognitive abilities of the human beings. So this particular approach, thinking like human, is now the forefront of AI research into deep learning, machine learning, data mining, as well as the AI as in whole. We also try to relate to AI the other disciplines that nowadays are kind of interchangeably used and how it relates to the cognitive computing model or cognitive computing approach. We very briefly looked at what do you mean by acting rationally. Okay, so acting rationally would mean creation or definition of a rational agent. Okay, in the word agent comes from a Latin term called as agri. An agent is just something that acts. Of course, all computer programs would be nothing but agents because they have inputs, they do certain processing, and they give out output. But then a computer program that would be called as a rational agent if the program acts or achieves the best outcome possible in the particular scenario. So we took some examples in order to understand this concept of rational agent, and then we proceeded with a brief introduction to a chatbot called which comes with along with Emacs, whose name is Eliza, and we had a demo of 4 or 5 minutes of this particular chatbot. Actually tried to make you aware about what are chatbots, and I requested you to go look for on Google what different chatbots are existing, and I also asked you to visit many websites wherein there are nowadays many e-commerce websites and other websites have their own chatbots installed to look at and check by interacting with these chat bots whether you feel like they are human like things or they are not. So you are supposed to at least visit 4 5 websites and their chatbots and try to figure out whether the background program that is running does does it do some sort of natural language processing. Okay, so I also made you aware that at as part of sixth module of the subject, you are supposed to create a chatbot on your own, and that is kind of the mini project of the subject. So you should do this exercise positively. I also asked you to validate how far the Turing test, which actually tests whether the machines or the computers or the computer systems that you build, are they acting like humans, how capable this test is, and how many of the AI systems developed have actually cracked this test and proved that they are AI. Okay, and some of you did answer this within the lecture itself by doing Google, but still, I would ask you to positively yourself do some search and come up with answer to this particular question. Has any system as far in 2020 uh, been beating the Turing test? That is, has any system proven that it is a AI? Okay, so we have certain humanoid robots like Sophia, if you remember, who visited India a few years back, and there are other many humanoid development in Japan and all those countries like South Korea, North Korea. So you could visit some sort of internet websites and figure out whether actually there is any system that has passed this particular Turing test and proved to be an artificially intelligent entity. Okay, so we should also critically think what is the reason because of which it has not any system has not been capable of, if it is found that no system has actually passed the Turing test, what could be the what could be the shortcomings of these AI development which has made this test so prevalent that no AI that we have developed so far has actually passed the Turing test. Okay, some of the authors or some of the places you will find that they will say that this test is no particular what you can say, no particular standard as such, but still this test is very important with respect to AI systems. Okay, uh, before we conclude this short presentation, I would actually like you to do one more exercise as maybe as a homework exercise, you can say, or you take it anyway as an assignment maybe. Okay, maybe formally I'll give you assignment later, but presently you do an exercise. I'm going to read few example AI literature. Okay, example AI literature that you are supposed to visit, or maybe you can just Google. I'm going to read you certain activities, and I want you to come up with your answer about whether these kind of problems are being solved using some sort of an AI or not. Okay, so there are certain problems. First problem is playing decent game of table tennis. Second is driving in the center of Cairo, Egypt, driving in Vectorville, California, buying a week's worth of groceries at the market, buying a week's worth groceries on the web, playing a decent game of bridge or go or some other game at a competitive level, discovering and proving new mathematical theorems, writing an intentionally funny story, giving competent legal advice in a specialized area of law, translating spoken English into spoken Swedish in real time, performing a complex surgical operation. So these are the tasks, and you need to find out whether there is any AI developed for completing or finding for actually performing these tasks. And you also need to comment to me about whether these are actually human tasks or not. Okay, so that's it for today's summary, and we'll meet in the next lecture.